scene.
Because it was in slow motion. Blood.
Ethan! And, there is like a fake out, right? Because I'm like, oh, wait. Is this where John Voight comes back into the movie, right? When he's at the safe house and Ethan imagines that it's him, right? Because he's like tired and had been nodding off and stuff. That's a good fake out, right? Because he does come back later, and if maybe something had snuck out about the fact that he dies and comes back, that you might have assumed it was that. So I thought that was a really good like way to set you up for his return, but also kind of like think when he really does return, is this for real? Because we saw this happen earlier and it didn't happen. So this is a very smart movie, I think. Everything kind of plays out very smart. And it has to be, because when you do all these twists and turns, and this character was actually affiliated with these guys, and you're a double agent over here, right? You have to be smarter than the audience, because nothing annoys me more than a movie that thinks it's smarter than you. This movie does not take that, right? This movie just shows you what you need to know, and then reveals more, and it all adds up at the end. And that's why, to me, more than any of the other ones, I think this one is the most espionage, right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Because what are the stakes here? Of course, the knock list, which, by the way, Skyfall ripped off. 20 years later. That's the same plot, by the way. James Bond, Skyfall, all the secret agent lists, right? And so they have to, they try to recover that. They're going to go to a party and take pictures of a guy stealing something. That's their mission, right? And then the mission is to, like, get files off a computer. And then you kind of have the action beat at the end with the train and the helicopter, right? But other than that, all the other movies, like, there's, like, these world-ending ramifications, right?
Yeah,
and I appreciate how this one is pretty small scale in comparison.
Well, it's probably very similar to the television show. Like, that initial mission that they have to do is probably exactly how the TV show would have gone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then having the twist of the entire team dying is what leads it into the movie and makes it something a little more modern. But I do want to get back to something you said. So, like, that initial fake-out with Jim Phelps coming back in the dream, that didn't work for me. No, I didn't like that at all. I don't like dream fake-outs in movies. Like, it's very rare that one works for me, and this one doesn't work for me. I don't know. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I don't like that dream. I think it's cheesy, and then when she comes and he, like, freaks out and points the gun at her, that's a good scene, but I just don't like it how it's, like,
Wake
right
up,
after
Claire.
the dream.
Jim is dead. They're all dead.
See, but it's good because he's freaking out as to why she's the bad, he thinks she's the bad person because she was the only one to survive, and she's giving him all the reasons. She's like, no, 4:00 is the time we were supposed to be here. That's the time I showed up here, So I like that. I think that's a really good scene. It's a little awkward the way, like how they play it. It's almost like they're playing it for, like, a sexual tension, and it's, like, kind of odd.
That's part of like the deleted subplot.
Yeah,
right? Like this love triangle, and it really comes together really at the end where all three of them are together on the train, and you kind of see that. But yeah, there's some weird sexual tension between them the whole movie. But I'm glad they cut, because I don't miss it. Like, I don't look at the movie and think there's missing pieces here. I think they made the right decision to cut that out because that's just too much going on.
I agree too, because especially with how we get to know Ethan Hunt later on in the films, like, he's an honorable person. He's a good person, and I don't think I would like to see a movie where he's fooling around with another man's wife in the movie. I don't think I would like that.
Agree. I agree with you.
So I'm glad that they took it out because it, that would have been a tough thing to explain later on, I think, in some of the other movies. So, and to justify with that character, it's really funny as I watch these movies, like, when I was a kid, like the Tom Cruise movies that I watched frequently, like my sister and I have no idea why. We watched Cocktail all the time, right? And actually, I kind of do know why. We had the soundtrack for it. And so when we had the soundtrack on cassette tape, and we listened to it all the time because it had Rave On and it had Kokomo, right? And we would listen to that album all the time. And so we finally got it on VHS, and so my sister and I watched it all the time. So that's really the movie that I know Tom Cruise the most from because I've seen it so much. And so I've always kind of dismissed him as an actor. But now that I've been watching these Mission Impossible films, like I turned to my wife the other day and I'm like, Tom Cruise is my new hero. Like, I'm like in love with Tom Cruise. I think he's just awesome. I think he's like a real down-to-earth guy. I think he seems to be like a really good person.
I mean, by all accounts, he's a great guy to work with. Because he has no airs about him. As far as like you show up and say, "Hey, I'm Tom." Like, yeah, I know who you are. Those are the stories that people have said about him. And he really, he's not like the guy that's like going to wait in his trailer and all that stuff. He's out there with the crew, trying to make the best product possible. And he loves acting. He loves the movies he makes, and it translates through the screen. And that's why you root for him and enjoy watching him on screen.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I mean, like, he's in my favorite Spielberg film.
Is War of the Worlds really your favorite Steven Spielberg movie?
I love that movie so much.
That is, we'll stay tuned. We'll talk about War of the Worlds sometime on Franchise Fatigue. So.
That is a masterpiece, that film. I love it so much, yeah. That is my favorite Spielberg movie. That is way better than Jaws. That movie is way better than Raiders of the Lost Ark. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Have you seen the 1960 War of the Worlds from George Powell?
No.
Rod Taylor's in it. It's a much better version.
No, but I have seen Robinson Crusoe on Mars, which uses the same spaceships as War of the Worlds from the 60s.
With Adam West.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Yes, you're right. Oh my goodness, yes, you're right. I don't know why.
That's right.
I was thinking
Adam
about
West.
the guy that played Wednesday in that or whatever.
Yeah, no. He was the astronaut that he was the Jim Phelps. Adam West was the Jim Phelps of Robinson Crusoe on Mars. But
yes.
But anyway, let's talk about the setup here. Like, did you like the setup of, like, they kind of set up this team dynamic and then they rip it all away and then it's just Ethan Hunt? Because I like that, and I think it would have been especially effective at the time because you have Emilio Estevez, who, remember, this is the mid-'90s. He was kind of a big name at the time. He's Charlie Sheen's brother.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, Emilio Estevez, they just killed him. Like, that would have been a big deal, right?
That is the greatest death. I love that death so much. That is so amazing.
Why does the top of the elevator shaft have these spikes?
I don't know, and I don't care. It's amazing.
Oh, but yeah, that's a brutal death right there.
That is a safety hazard and a horrible way to go.
It also kind of, like, if you look at the trajectory of Emilio Estevez's career, this is pretty much it for him, ironically. He really kind of faded away after the 90s. But yeah, I like that because I don't know, if you're going to this cold, you think, oh, this is the team, this is what they're going to do, right? And then they kind of off all these characters, and you're like, whoa, okay, I guess Tom Cruise is our guy moving forward. So
yeah, and even with Jim Phelps, I'm sorry, I'm so bad with names. What's
John
the actor's name? Voight. John Voight. Like, he was a big actor.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Right? So the first time watching this, you don't realize that he's, faked his own death and whatnot. So to have him die as well, that would be pretty shocking, I think, on a first watch. Mm-hmm. So I love it. I think it's a great way to do the movie.
And what about the new team members of, Jean Reno and Ving Rhames coming in?
Well, Jean Reno, he's from The Professional, like, right?
Yeah, The Professional, Godzilla, a couple years later, he owned the 90s.
Yeah. I think it's great because, again, so it's flipping it on its head where you think that the cast is one set of people, and then halfway through it changes up. So it keeps you guessing, and you're not quite sure where the story's going to go. Right. Because you don't know what it is he's going to do. I mean, when Tom Cruise's character is explaining to them what they're going to do and why they're going to do it, they're going to steal the real knock file. Like, that's probably a pretty shocking thing upon a first watch. Like, I don't think that had this Mission Impossible been made now, I don't think it would be quite as shocking a plot twist. But with this being the first, I think that would have been really shocking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's a pretty bad thing to do for your hero, right?
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. And I think they, it's one of these movies as well where they're just, it's made in a time when, the internet and, like, this kind of technology was just coming into being. So, like, now it looks dated, but it is really groundbreaking for when it came out, Yeah. So I never let that affect my judgment of it. Like, last time I watched it and this time that I watched it, I don't let any of the weird internet things and the weird cell phone things affect me at all. Like, they spend so much time on this email scene, right, where he's emailing, and they really let the movie breathe.
Search
and I mean, I had to
the
explain,
internet.
Yeah, I had to explain to my daughter, like, okay, so this is how the internet used to be, right?
I don't know, was the internet really that way, though? I think this is how Hollywood thought the internet was. Like, this is the one, and I'm like you, Brandon. Like, I like old TV shows, Star Trek, Twilight Zone, right? I try not to let these things date the show. But or a movie, but, like, they spent so much time on the emails. Like, even I had to be like, all right, guys, like, let's move it along here. You see the mail come in and open up.
Zach Moore's director's cut trims this down a bit.
Yes, let's cut out some of the emails. Like, it was very 90s. Like, look, the magical world of electronic mail, right? So anyway, that's the only time really that the technology felt dated to me, because I appreciate, like, look, they had to, like, to steal the knock list, he had to physically break into Langley, right, and do all that stuff. And then Ving Rhames could do his thing. Luther could do his thing when Tom Cruise was there, who had given him access, right? But, like, in today's day and age, like, I feel like they'd be like, oh, yeah, we'll just hack the firewall, right? You see Simon Pegg and, Ving Rhames at a couple of computers, and then they would save the day, right? So I like how there is, yes, the technology is there, but you still have the boots on the ground physical component of what you have to do to accomplish the mission.
And that scene is absolutely amazing. Like, that's holds
the
up.
Most iconic scene of the franchise, I'd say, even still, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know, maybe that hanging on the plane from what is it, 5? That's pretty off the wall.
No, literally. Speaking of off the wall, 4 is pretty iconic too. That's the thing, right? The franchise, the Mission Impossible franchise, Tom Cruise always finds a way to up the ante, and that's what's so great. But
yes.
One bit of trivia that I did not mention earlier that I want to bring up now was the room in Langley, the vault there, information vault, whatever it's called. They said that the stark white look of the room was inspired by 2001.
I can see that.
I thought it was more alien. Like when they go talk to Mother, in the Nostromo. It's like just the shape of the room and all that. So that's the vibe I got from it. But either way, it was very cool and futuristic.
Well, Mother's more yellowish.
Beige, yeah. But
I guess
the shape of the room is what I got.
Yeah, and Hal is not very white either, I guess, right? It's pretty dark in that room, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's very sterile on the Discovery. I guess that's what they were going for. But they said that was one of the inspirations for that set design. So
Yeah, it could be, I guess, yeah. Yeah, I guess, well, what else do we need to talk about? What are we missing here?
I'm going to talk some about Brian DePalma. Like, I want to seek out more of his films, because the way he directs the film, like the camera, the angles he chooses, like all these really low-angle close-ups, right? Especially in the conversation with, what's the guy's name? Kishner or the other agent?
You're asking me names here?
What is the guy's name? I believe it's Kishner. But you know what I'm talking about. The one that Ethan Hunt is having the conversation with in the restaurant, and he becomes like a character throughout the rest of the movie.
Oh, yeah. The guy from the agency.
Yeah. So that was a very well directed scene. Like that, you could feel the tension ratcheting up in that scene. Like as the characters are talking, and then the camera angles change, and just these low up angles, right? And
those are pretty low angles.
But yeah, it says something. Like, it's visually interesting. Like, you could have shot that scene, it could have been so boring, right? Like a standard primetime drama, like over the shoulder, reverse shot, wide shot, right? But just the way that he chooses to use the camera is very fascinating. Also, he uses a lot of deep focus in this movie, and that's something that Robert Wise used on Star Trek: The Motion Picture, where you have like you have your foreground and all that in focus, and then you have a split focus, and something far in the background is also in focus, and that is used to great effect here multiple times. In the Langley scene, right? You see the guy who wanders back in, and Tom Cruise hanging from the roof, and they're both in focus. You see when the rats crawling through the air duct, right? And Jean Reno is in focus there. So they do a lot of cool things with the camera here. So that is something I think they might have lost, but moving forward, like in Mission Impossible 2 with we'll get to that with John, where he has its own visual style, right? But I feel like this kind of visual style and storytelling fit the Mission Impossible franchise very well.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I'm looking through his list right now to see what else I might have seen by him. So I've seen Sisters. I've seen Obsession. Carrie. He did Carrie, right? Which is a really
Stephen
good
King,
movie.
yeah.
Yeah. He did Blowout, which I've seen, which is amazing. John Travolta's in that. Scarface from 1983.
He did Scarface. Wow.
He did Scarface, yeah. He did The Untouchables, which I haven't seen. He did Raising Cain, which I saw.
Oh, wow. He did Mission to Mars. Yikes.
Yeah. Carlito's Way, I haven't seen. Snake Eyes, I haven't seen. Black Dahlia, I haven't seen. And Domino, I haven't seen. So
I have seen Black Dahlia. Pretty disappointing movie, frankly.
Is it?
Yeah. Was not a fan.
Blowout's amazing. Blowout's absolutely amazing. You
cool. I'm going to definitely look into his filmography. The Untouchables I've always wanted to see because I love Robert Stack, and that's there's another show from the 60s turned into a movie. So Brian DePalma has cornered the market on that.
Sisters you should see first, though. Sisters is just amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
I'll put it on the list. But yeah. So did you keep
I'll interrupt
track?
for a second here. So my Criterion Edition DVD of Sisters, Margot Kidder came to Regina's Fan Expo a couple years ago, and I got her to autograph it.
Oh, that's a great collector's item, Brandon. Well done. So I'm going to ask you at the end, right?